in terms of corporate social responsibility and all of that, we're completely disempowered in a lot of senses. And you can say, go and work for a nonprofit, but you can't make a living wage. And you can say, you know, like, it just seems like go, you know, shopping for certain things. Okay, go buy organic products, but they're a lot more expensive. And so in terms of like the young people out there with these ideals, what is your advice to us, is my question.
My advice really is to go with your ideals. My daughter works for a nonprofit. She stopped at a very lucrative job with a public relations firm because she decided that she no longer wanted to represent companies she didn't believe in, and she took a huge cut in salary. But she's a lot happier. She can't buy the same sweater she bought then, but she's a lot happier. I think we have to make our choices here. Yes, food that's produced sustainably or organically is more expensive, but so what? I mean, these are the choices that we need to make. We need to survive as a species, and surviving as a species may mean having a lot fewer clothes, a lot smaller cars, a lot smaller houses, and more expensive food that's grown more consciously. But I think we really need to do that. And what we need to do is really support each other. Your community of young people, support each other in your value system rather than the clothes, the size of the car, and so on. I think you'll find that if you really follow your heart and you follow your conscience, the rest will take care of itself. I know when I was your age, I didn't feel that way either. It's one of the reasons I became an economic hitman. I totally understand where you're coming from. Don't become an economic hitman or woman. But over the years, I've really learned, you know, that if I stick my head in a noose, as I did writing this book, it's probably not going to be lopped off. And if I cut back on things, and as I've done a lot in my life, I'm probably going to get happier, not less happy. I may not have the same material goods. You know, I try to be conscious of every piece of clothes I buy these days and not buy very many, you know, keep recycling and reusing them myself. And I'm happier for it. And I wouldn't have believed that a lot of years ago when I was your age, but try it. And support your friends in that and get them to support you in it. It's a great question, though. It's not easy. Nobody says this is going to be easy. You know, what's that line from Harry Potter? Something about the upcoming world is going to be tough, and we can choose either the easy route or the right route. Let's choose the right route. Are we coming to an end?
Well, let me just say one thing, okay? We've been going now about 15 minutes over the time that we've kind of allotted for it, so we are beginning to wind down. I'm going to say 2 more questions, and then we're going to have to shut down for this evening. I'm sorry to do it, but it's too many people standing in the back. But thanks. Let's go with the other 2.
Hi, I speak as someone who went with my heart and did idealistic things for 20 years, and now I'm sitting here in Washington looking at all the latest materials on things like data mining. Since you have some familiarity with the NSA, I wonder if you could say something about how we can make things like data mining work for the people. When I see that the average person doesn't have a LexisNexis password and investigative journalists are going one Google search at a time, it's kind of like giving them a pea shooter to root out corruption. With the kind of stuff that's available, a situation like Enron has to be pretty readily apparent if you're using proper data mining equipment. Do you have any insight in how this could be improved?
Well, I think, again, I'm certainly not an expert in that field at all. It sounds like you know more about it than I do, and you ought to get deeply, deeply, deeply involved. But stay committed, read as much as you can, and go into it with a vengeance. Yes, we need that, and yes, it does work. Enron, you know, look what happened to Enron and Anderson and WorldCom and a bunch of other companies like that. And we are now exposing what the NSA is doing in terms of listening to my telephone and perhaps yours. I know they're listening to mine, they're probably listening to all of us. I think that things like this are beginning to come out more, and of course, the more that happens and the more we as a people support it and ask for it to happen more, and the more that we honor those who do it, the stronger it becomes, and the more it becomes. We mustn't give up. We must keep pushing for this over and over and over again. Again, I suppose for me, having this book go to the top of the list is an ego trip to a certain degree. But more than anything, what it says to me is that despite the fact that the media blackballed me and continue to, my publicist felt totally confident that when this book came out with Penguin in paperback, suddenly the mainstream media was going to invite me in. They haven't. Surprise. But you're here. I mean, we've got a pretty good-sized crowd here tonight. And, you know, there's a lot of other people buying the book and listening, and this is happening with so many books and so many movies. The word is getting out there, and we need to just keep pushing for it. I think maybe you need to write your book. Thank you.
I'd like to commend you for the work you've done, particularly showing the American public how deeply evil the people who run this country have been willing to stoop. It's very hard for a lot of people to really face how evil our leaders have chosen to become. I'm active on the 9/11 issue, and most of the respected people in the movement, in the peace movement, won't even give proper respect to that. I'm going to ask you how, what your knowledge is, if you've looked at the issues involved with claiming that there's a cover-up. I'll ask one very specific question, which is very concise. Did you know that the Kane Commission, the official government commission, did not even mention the number 7 World Trade Center, a 47-story building, collapsed at 5:20 p.m. on 9/11/01 without being hit by a plane, taller than any building in Maryland or Virginia? It wasn't mentioned, and the New York Times and the Washington Post didn't mention that it wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, and there's some excellent books and some excellent DVDs and films on that whole subject, including the one that shows that there were never a plane shown crashing into the Pentagon, which haven't gotten around very much. I wish they'd get around more. I don't really like to speculate on things I don't know much about, and I don't know. You know a lot more about that than I do. And I like to talk about things I really know about. I know there's a lot of there are films around, but they're not getting wide circulation.
Work with 911truth.org. That's a good place to start.
911truth.org. Yeah, go to it. And the other thing is, it has struck me that if someone were to rob the bank down the street here tomorrow, probably the first thing the police would do would be to look for an inside job, right? But I was in the Amazon on 9/11, and shortly after that I went up to Ground Zero, and I was amazed when I came back from the Amazon as I'm driving out. I flew into the Miami airport and I was driving up to my home in another part of Florida, and listening, and I was expecting to hear people talking about, well, let's look at who really did this. But even on NPR, and on every radio station, I didn't hear any of that. And as I said, I don't know anything about 9/11 really and what really happened there, but I'm amazed by the lack of true investigation that seems to have gone into that. It just appalls me because it really, coming from where I come from, it's extremely difficult for me to believe that whole thing was masterminded by a man living in a cave with a walkie-talkie.
Thank you so much.
But I don't know. Thank you. All right. Well, can I just bring us to a quick close? So just as we're closing, and maybe we can get your questions at the table out there when we're here, where we're signing, whatever. I just want to remind you all that changes do occur, and I'd like to leave you with this thought. And they occur because people become determined to change consciousness. And so we'd just like to say that together, all of us here together, and all of our friends and all of our communities around, we must do the right thing. We must do the rational thing, the smart thing, the pragmatic thing. We must do this. We must change this world. We must transform our corporations. We must change this world. We must create a world that will be safe for our children and their children, and one that they will be proud to inherit from us. So let's go out and do that, and I thank you very much.
John Perkins is founder of the nonprofit organization Dream Change, a grassroots movement intent on raising consciousness and creating sustainable lifestyles throughout the world. Confessions of an Economic Hitman is published by Plume. Visit penguin.com for more information.
Desire.